You know, Mansong, that was a, let me just say that. It's pronounced Mansong. How you pronounce it?
Well, it's Mansong. I let people get away with Mansong.
Right, you pronounce it slowly.
Mansong Kulubally.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, the name comes from the Gambia and Mali. And Mansong is a word also. It means I disagree. So the brother from Gambia understood that I disagreed with the Caucasians' imposition on our lives, and that I accepted that we're an African people, symbolized by the family name Kulubally.
Mansong, you were born and raised in Chicago, right?
Born and raised in Chicago.
Now, you wasn't born Mansong, were you?
No, I of course.
You gotta tell folks you're slave.
No, I wasn't gonna do that.
Yeah, okay.
Me and my mother kicked it to the curb when I was 23, 24 years old.
Your mother changed her name too?
Yeah, I included her in on that process.
Wow.
And she picked that one out of 3 other ones.
Wow, but that was back in, I imagine...
1974, I was about 23.
And I was playing in the 70s, and that was, of course, I was in grammar school. I may have been like 5th grade or something in 74. Maybe 6th or 7th, I don't know. I left in 76, 8th grade in 76. You do the math. But I got a whiff of the Black Power days, okay? And so a person like me, people understand, Chicago is very segregated. Was it segregated? What high school you went to?
I came out of Dunbar in 1968, Dunbar Vocational.
Okay, Dunbar. Okay, we only got like, this is gonna go by. We've got like 15 minutes of camera. When the camera shuts off, the show is over. We gotta do this very quick. So I got a whiff of the Black Power days, and by being Chicago being so segregated, and it's still one of the most segregated big cities you ever saw.
That's correct.
I mean, it's pockets here changing, but it's very segregated. And then you have a segregation by economics lines too, racial and economic lines. But the point is that by me, and most of my parents are African-American, but I don't look like you. I don't look like an average African. But I got caught up in the Black Power days being in segregated Chicago. Thus, here I am on the other side of the brown paper bag, if y'all know what that means, doing this type of show. And a real darker skinned looking brother, a real African looking brother should be doing this show, but they not. I'm still doing this show in 2008. And that is due to the brainwashing we got in America. Explain that to people how we brainwash.
Well, let me say this, Mark. I appreciate what you said, and if I understood it correctly, Dr. Karinga, one of my main mentors, talks about what black is. Black is 3 things. Not only color, but it's consciousness and conduct. You can be as black as the Ace of Spades and be a Negro like Clarence Thomas.
You sure can.
And by the way, all African people are not jet black. Even in Africa, there are people of different shades. We're like that. That's our family, you know. So you look just as African as anybody else, you know. And I must commend you for all the work that you've done.
And it's not just me, because it's people like me, because it's people who are telling me, they say, Mark, you shouldn't be doing, they tell me in my face, the way you look, you got the complexion for the connection, you shouldn't be doing this show. Okay, and I admit it, I don't totally embrace the Afrocentric mindset per se, because of the way I look. I just admit it. But also, it's like a Barack Obama. He is, some people like him because he is, quote, I'm not half white, but he is.
Okay.
And he may have the bloodline to be president, which is another deep subject. But you know what I'm saying? It seems like if you're more like if you have a white ancestry, most of us do. We do have that bloodline. But if you're directly white, like Barack Obama, you're more palatable to white folks.
Well, yeah, we understand that. We know what they did in apartheid South Africa, and created a whole class called colors.
The colors, yeah.
Right, and then of course we had color consciousness in America, in our community. That was imposed upon us. But we can't, you know, get stuck with that.
But the Willie Lynch theory, the Willie Lynch syndrome, is still with us in 2008.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is we have to define black, not only as color, but color, consciousness, and conduct, and understand that we have a variety of shades of people. Dr. Karinga is lighter than you are.
I've seen him once. Yeah, I've seen him in the airport one time. Yeah.
And he's done all this work, W.E.B. Du Bois, you know, it's where your heart is. That's what really makes you African. It's what you do. You know, in other words, Kazi, K-A-Z-I, that's a Swahili word for work. That's the blackest of all, according to Imamu Amiri Baraka, the great literary guy and poet and black nationalist at one time.
But look at the African people. I don't really have that much. I have no association with the African people who have come here to America, come here to Chicago. We're on the south side, 39th and Cottage Grove, right? Most of the Africans have moved. They on the north side, Rogers Park, you know, Lakeview. They way up north. They don't want to associate with us. I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me just say this. I recognize that fact of what you're talking about. But we have to understand why that is and where that comes from. The fact of the matter is there are conscious African people in Africa, and there are unconscious African people in Africa. There are conscious African people in America like me and you,
right? And
there are a lot of unconscious African people right here in America. So the principle is that we got unconscious folk everywhere the African is. That's what Kwame Ture used to teach us. We got conscious Africans wherever we are in the world. So what we have to do is move in such a way as we make more Africans conscious, but you're not going to get everybody. And no. Malcolm X used to tell us you don't need everybody. All you need is a critical mass to light that fuse. Okay? And again, this just points up the truism to what he said back in 1965. He said that we must launch, in this country, a black cultural revolution to unbrainwash an entire people, Mark. So that's an ongoing thing.
Let's close out by saying about this hip-hop. See, a lot of younger, I was caught up in the Black Power movement back in the 70s, but there's a lot of young people in the 80s and 90s, and now, because hip-hop, rap hip-hop has been around for, it started when I was in high school rather. But the point is that they embrace hip-hop more than an Afrocentric mindset, whatever hip-hop is.
Okay, but we have had conscious, it started out with conscious rap, but then it got sidetracked into this gangster genre. So we got to recognize what happened. We got people like Chuck D, Public Enemy, KRS-One, Paris, Dead Prayers, and a whole plethora.
I mean, Common was cool. I met Common. Common's right from the neighborhood, 87th Street. He's
a whole
great
plethora of conscious empowerment rappers. So the need for power has always been what is.
But that goes back to white supremacy, but why the silly hip hop took over from the conscious hip hop, and young people don't understand that although the white power structure don't wear white sheets and all that, burn crosses and whatnot, but white supremacy still reigns supreme.
Right, and the need for black power to offset that, Mark. Power, according to Dr. Karinga, is the social capacity of a people to realize its will even in opposition to others. But that's just a dynamic here in this country. We're going to have to build black power.
But tell them young people, when this camera's going to shut off because I lost track of time, is when it shuts off the show is over. Tell those young people, it's not an accident that there's about over 1 million brothers in prison. That's not by accident.
No, that's not an accident.
Tell them that over 70% of the sisters are not married. They may have a boyfriend, but most of our sisters are single, or they ain't married. That's not by accident. Most of our children, 60% of our children born out of wedlock. Tell them that is rooted in white supremacy.
Right. We must understand, young folk, and this will be the case long after I'm gone, long after you become older. We got to understand that racism is a system of denying and deforming a people's history, humanity, and right to freedom using the species concept of race.